It was a bright Saturday morning in the quiet town of Brooksville. The air smelled fresh after a night of rain, and the streets were lined with trees dripping tiny drops of water that sparkled in the sunlight. Birds were singing, kids were laughing in the distance, and cars passed by slowly, heading toward the weekend market. On the corner near the old coffee shop called Harper's Brew, a shiny black 1967 Ford Mustang stood parked by the curb. Its hood was open and smoke was gently rising from the engine. Behind the car stood a man in his mid-40s, dressed in a crisp white shirt and expensive shoes that did not look meant for car trouble. His name was Raymond Carter, a well-known millionaire businessman in the area. He had made his fortune in real estate and tech investments, but at that moment, all his wealth seemed useless. The car he loved most, the Mustang he'd restored with his own hands, refused to start. He looked frustrated, wiping sweat off his forehead, glancing around as if someone might appear and magically fix it. A few minutes later, Maya Thompson, a 17-year-old schoolgirl, walked down the same street carrying a backpack and a small toolbox. She was wearing her school uniform, but she wasn't heading to school that morning. Maya often helped at a local car repair shop on weekends. She loved engines, gears, and anything that could be fixed with a wrench. Her father had been a mechanic before he passed away 2 years earlier. Since then, Maya had taken over his small garage projects, keeping his dream alive. As she passed the coffee shop, she noticed the man standing beside the smoking Mustang. The sight immediately caught her attention. Maya's brown eyes lit up. That model was her favorite. The sound of its engine, the curve of its body, the smell of its leather seats. She slowed down and then stopped completely, watching the man frown at the car as he turned the key again and again with no success. Maya hesitated for a second. Most people didn't take her seriously when she offered to help with cars, especially grown men who didn't expect a schoolgirl to know what she was doing. But something about the way the man looked, helpless yet proud, made her step forward. "Excuse me, sir," she said politely, her voice confident but gentle. "Do you need some help with your car?" Raymond turned around surprised. He wasn't used to strangers talking to him in such a friendly tone. His eyes fell on Maya, her neat school uniform slightly smudged with a bit of oil on her sleeve, and the small silver toolbox she carried. He gave a polite smile, but there was doubt in his eyes. "I appreciate it," he said slowly, "but I think this might be a bit too complicated. My car won't start, it's probably the engine." Maya smiled back. "Maybe. Or maybe it's something simple," she said with quiet confidence. "I've worked on Mustangs before. My dad taught me everything I know." There was something honest and steady in her tone that made Raymond pause. After a short silence, he nodded. "All right, let's see what you've got." Maya set her backpack down and approached the car. She leaned over the open hood, the warm air from the engine brushing her face. She checked the spark plugs, the wiring, and the battery connection. Her hands moved quickly but carefully, and it was clear she knew exactly what she was doing. Raymond watched, slightly amazed. This young girl was calm, focused, and clearly skilled. "You really know cars," he said, trying to hide his surprise. "My dad used to say a car talks if you listen," she replied with a small smile. "You just have to pay attention." After a few minutes, she noticed a loose cable near the ignition coil. "There's your problem," she said, tightening it with her wrench. "The connection's weak. It's not sending a proper spark." Raymond nodded slowly, watching closely as she adjusted a few more parts. When she finished, she stepped back and motioned for him to try again. "Go ahead." "Turn it on," she said. Raymond got into the car, turned the key, and to his surprise, the engine roared to life. The deep, powerful sound filled the street, smooth and steady. A grin spread across his face as he looked at her in disbelief. Maya laughed, clapping her hands once in excitement. "Told you it wasn't too bad," she said. Raymond stepped out of the car, shaking his head with admiration. "That's incredible. You really saved me there." "How old are you?" 17, she said proudly. "And I want to study automotive engineering one day." For a moment, Raymond just looked at her, as if he couldn't believe that someone so young could carry such skill and passion. The people walking by had started to notice too, some smiling at the strange but heartwarming sight of a schoolgirl helping a rich man fix his classic car. He reached into his pocket, took out some cash, and tried to hand it to her. "Here, please, at least let me pay you for your time." But Maya shook her head. "No, sir. My dad always said if you love what you do, helping someone isn't a job. It's a blessing." Her words hit him harder than he expected. For a second, the noise of the street seemed to fade. This girl, this stranger, had not only fixed his car but reminded him of something he had forgotten. A kind of humility and kindness money couldn't buy. Raymond smiled genuinely this time. "You're quite something, Maya," he said softly. She nodded with a shy grin, picked up her toolbox, and started to walk away. But before she could cross the street, he called after her. "Wait, would you like a ride?" "You deserve at least that." She turned and laughed. "Maybe next time, sir," she said, waving as she disappeared around the corner, her backpack bouncing lightly with each step. Raymond stood there beside his running Mustang, still smiling, wondering how a random morning had just turned into something unforgettable. The next morning, Raymond Carter couldn't stop thinking about the young girl who had fixed his Mustang. He had met hundreds of people in his life, businessmen, engineers, investors, but none had left such a lasting impression on him in such a short time. That schoolgirl Maya had confidence, honesty, and warmth that felt rare in the world he lived in. He remembered her calm hands under the hood of his car, the spark in her eyes when the engine started, and that simple line she'd said, "Helping someone isn't a job, it's a blessing." Those words played in his mind over and over again. So, the next weekend, Raymond drove back to the same street near Harper's Brew, secretly hoping he might see her again. He parked the Mustang near the coffee shop and stepped inside, ordering his usual black coffee. The air smelled of roasted beans and fresh pastries. The shop was small, cozy, and filled with soft chatter. As he looked around, he noticed a familiar backpack leaning against a corner table. And there she was, Maya Thompson, sitting with a few open notebooks, sipping a cup of tea while sketching something. Raymond smiled. He walked over and said kindly, "I didn't expect to see you here again." Maya looked up, a bit surprised, then smiled. "Oh, you're the man with the Mustang," she said with a laugh. "I'm glad it's still running." "It's running perfectly," Raymond replied with a grin. "In fact, better than before." "Thanks to you," she blushed slightly. "I'm glad it helped." He noticed the sketches on the table, blueprints of car parts, designs of engines, and what looked like a concept model for a sports car. Her pencil strokes were clean and detailed. "You drew these?" he asked, amazed. Maya nodded. "Yes, I'm trying to design my own car someday. Something fast but energy efficient too. It's just an idea for now." Raymond raised his eyebrows. "That's quite a dream. You really love cars, don't you?" She smiled softly. "I do. My dad and I used to work on them every weekend." He said cars tell stories, they carry memories just like people. Raymond nodded slowly, feeling a strange pull in his chest. He had loved cars for the same reason. His Mustang was more than just metal and wheels. It reminded him of his youth, of freedom, of his daughter who used to ride in the passenger seat before life changed forever. After a moment of silence, he asked, "Do you still work at a garage?" "Yes," Maya said. "I help at Mr. Nolan's workshop after school. It's not much, but I learn something new every day. I save whatever I earn. I want to study automotive engineering one day, but..." She hesitated. "College is expensive." Raymond could hear the quiet disappointment in her voice. She tried to sound strong, but there was sadness there too. He smiled gently. "Money shouldn't be the reason someone like you gives up on a dream." Maya laughed lightly, shaking her head. "That's sweet, but life doesn't work that way for everyone, sir. Some of us just have to keep fixing things one car at a time." Raymond admired her spirit. There was no bitterness in her words, only quiet strength. She wasn't asking for help. She wasn't complaining. She was simply doing her best with what she had. That moved him deeply. They talked for almost an hour, about cars, school, her favorite subjects, and even music. She had a playful sense of humor that made him laugh, something he hadn't done in a long time. He felt lighter around her, like the world outside didn't matter for a little while. Before leaving, he said, "You know, I run a foundation that supports young talent, students with skills and big dreams. Maybe I could help you with your studies." Maya blinked in surprise. "Really, but I didn't ask for..." He raised a hand gently. "I know, and that's exactly why I want to. You've earned it, Maya. You helped me without expecting anything. Let me return the favor." She looked down for a moment, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say." "Just say yes," he said with a kind smile. "I'll handle the details. You just keep working hard." Maya hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. I'll make sure your help doesn't go to waste." Raymond stood to leave but paused as something shiny caught his eye. On her left hand, a small gold ring glimmered in the light. It was simple, no diamonds, no fancy design, but something about it made him curious. He smiled and said softly, "That's a nice ring." "Is it special?" Maya touched it gently, her smile fading into a look of quiet emotion. "It was my dad's," she said. "He gave it to my mom when they got married. After he passed, I kept it. It reminds me that he's still with me whenever I'm fixing something." Raymond felt a lump form in his throat. He didn't know what to say. He simply nodded, his eyes soft with understanding. Maya noticed his expression and asked, "Are you okay, sir?" He gave a small smile. "Yes. It just reminds me of someone I lost too." There was a silence between them, gentle, meaningful, and filled with quiet respect. Two people from different worlds connected not by wealth or age, but by shared loss and unspoken understanding. As Raymond left the coffee shop that day, he felt something change inside him. Helping Maya wasn't just charity anymore, it felt personal. It felt like fate had crossed their paths for a reason, and Maya, watching him walk away, couldn't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, life was opening a new door for her too. The days that followed felt like a gentle change in rhythm for both Maya and Raymond. After their second meeting at Harper's Brew, Raymond found himself thinking more about her story, about her courage, her passion, and the quiet strength in her voice. He had met many people with ambition, but Maya's kind was different. It wasn't driven by greed or fame. It came from love. Love for her late father, for engines, and for the dream he'd left behind. A week later, Raymond drove his Mustang to Nolan's garage, the place Maya had mentioned. The garage sat on the edge of town, surrounded by rusted fences and piles of old tires. The sound of tools clinking, engines revving, and faint laughter filled the air. It smelled of oil and hope, two things that somehow belonged together. As soon as he stepped inside, he saw Maya bent over a car, her hair tied back, her uniform replaced by grease-stained overalls. She was focused, wiping her forehead with the back of her hand as she worked on a carburetor. "Maya," he called out. She looked up and smiled, surprised. "Mr. Carter, you actually came?" "I said I would," he said, smiling warmly. "I wanted to see the expert in action." She laughed softly, then waved him over. "Well, welcome to my second home. Watch your step, it's a mess, but I like it that way." He looked around. The garage wasn't much. A few old cars, a workbench full of scattered tools, and walls covered in posters of classic engines. Yet there was something alive about it. It had heart. Mr. Nolan, a kind old man with gray hair and rough hands, came out from the back. "You must be Mr. Carter," he said, shaking Raymond's hand. "Maya told me about you. You've got quite the Mustang." Raymond chuckled. "And she's the reason it's still running." Mr. Nolan nodded proudly. "That girl's got magic in her hands. Never seen anyone fix an engine like that since her father." Maya looked down shyly, pretending to clean her hands on a rag. "Stop it, Mr. Nolan," she said with a smile. "You'll make me blush." Raymond laughed softly. "You should take the compliment, Maya. You've earned it." As the afternoon went on, Raymond watched as Maya worked. She explained things to him. How a fuel injector worked, how the timing belt needed to be adjusted, and why every car had its own personality. The way she spoke was simple but full of wonder, like a teacher who loved her subject more than anything. He realized he wasn't just watching her fix cars. He was watching her live her dream in real time. Every turn of the wrench, every spark of the metal, every drop of oil on her hands told a story of perseverance. "You know," Raymond said thoughtfully, "I used to love working on cars too. Before business took over my life." Maya looked up at him. "Then why did you stop?" He smiled faintly. "Because success has a way of convincing you that what you love is just a hobby. But seeing you here, it reminds me that passion isn't something money can replace." She tilted her head, smiling. "Maybe it's not too late to remember, sir." Her words hit him softly but deeply. He hadn't expected to be the one learning lessons that day. When evening came, the sky turned orange and pink. The work for the day was done. Maya closed the garage doors halfway and sat on the steps outside, sipping a cold soda. Raymond joined her, sitting beside her Mustang, which gleamed under the fading sunlight. She looked at him curiously. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why are you helping me? I mean, you don't even know me that well." Raymond took a deep breath. Because someone once helped me when I was young. I came from a poor neighborhood too. A teacher believed in me when no one else did. If he hadn't, I'd never have become who I am today. I guess I just see that same spark in you. Maya's eyes softened. That's kind of you. But I want to earn everything myself. I don't want people to think I'm lucky. I want them to know I worked for it. He smiled gently. And that's exactly why you deserve it. The two sat in silence for a while, listening to the distant sound of cars passing. It wasn't an awkward silence, it was the kind that happens between people who truly understand each other. Then, out of nowhere, Maya began to laugh. You know what's funny? My friends think I'm weird for liking cars. They go shopping, I go to junkyards. They do makeup tutorials, I rebuild engines. Raymond chuckled. You're not weird, Maya, you're rare. And rare people build great things. She looked at him gratefully, and for the first time in a long while, she felt truly seen. Not as a schoolgirl, not as a mechanic's daughter, but as someone capable of greatness. Before leaving, Raymond handed her a small card. This is my office number. Come by next week. We'll talk about your scholarship application. Her eyes widened. You mean it? I never say things I don't mean, he said with a wink. Maya held the card tightly, her heart racing. Thank you, Mr. Carter, really. As he drove away in his Mustang, Raymond glanced in the rearview mirror and saw her standing there, waving with a smile that could light up the whole town. He realized that day that he hadn't just met a talented mechanic. He'd met someone who reminded him of the person he used to be before money. Meetings and fame took over his soul, and as for Maya, that evening she wrote in her small journal, Today, I learned that the world isn't as big as it feels. Sometimes the right people show up when you least expect them. Sometimes a broken car can fix two hearts at once. A week later, the sun was bright again over Brooksville. The town hummed with the quiet sound of life. Buses rolling by, people chatting outside stores, and the faint music from a nearby park. At Nolan's garage, the day started early as usual, but today felt different for Maya. She knew Mr. Carter was coming. She had spent the whole morning cleaning the place, wiping oil stains off the tools and organizing parts that hadn't been touched in months. Even Mr. Nolan noticed her unusual energy. What's got you all worked up, kid? He asked, chuckling as he watched her sweep the floor for the third time. Maya grinned. Nothing, just... I like things to look nice, he raised an eyebrow. I see. Someone important coming by? She shrugged, pretending not to care, but her eyes gave her away. Maybe, she said softly. Just after noon, a familiar roar echoed down the street. The deep, classic rumble of the Mustang's engine. Maya looked up instantly. The car turned the corner, shiny and perfect under the sunlight, and parked right outside the garage. Raymond Carter stepped out, wearing a casual jacket instead of his usual suit. He looked relaxed, almost younger than before. Good afternoon, Maya, he said warmly. She smiled. You're right on time, Mr. Carter. Call me Raymond, he said with a grin. We're car people now, right? She laughed. All right then, Raymond. He glanced at the car she'd been working on, a faded red pickup truck. You've been busy. Always, she replied. This old thing belongs to Mr. Nolan's brother. I'm trying to get it running again. The engine's fighting me, but I'll win. I don't doubt that, he said with admiration. After some small talk, Raymond opened the Mustang's hood. I wanted you to check something. The engine's been making a soft clicking sound. I can't tell if it's the timing chain or just my paranoia. Maya leaned in, listening carefully as he started the car. The engine purred beautifully, but sure enough, there was a faint rhythmic click. You're right, she said, nodding. It's small, but it's there. Let me check something. For the next 20 minutes, she worked carefully, her hands steady and confident. Raymond stood nearby, watching her again. The same calm focus, the same spark. She reminded him of an artist painting, precise and full of feeling. When she finished, she wiped her hands and said, All right, it should be smoother now, but we'll know for sure only after a test drive. Raymond smiled. You mean I get to sit back and let you drive again? She grinned mischievously. Only if you trust me. He laughed, shaking his head. After what you did last time, I'd trust you with a jet. A few minutes later, they were both in the car. Maya in the driver's seat, Raymond in the passenger seat. The smell of old leather filled the cabin, mixed with the faint scent of engine oil and fresh air. Maya turned the key and the Mustang came alive. Smooth, powerful, Ready. She pulled onto the open road, her hands steady on the steering wheel. The town blurred past and the wind rushed through the half-open windows. Raymond watched her with quiet admiration. She looked free, really free, like someone who belonged behind the wheel. "You handle it like a professional," he said. She smiled without taking her eyes off the road. "It's not about control," she said. "It's about respect. If you respect the car, it'll respect you back." He nodded, impressed. "That's a wise way to think." They drove past the lake where the sunlight danced on the water and the road curved through golden fields. For a few moments there was no talk, just the steady rhythm of the engine and the world rushing by. Then Raymond said quietly, "You remind me of my daughter." Maya glanced at him, curious. "Your daughter?" He nodded slowly. "She loved cars too. She used to sit in this same seat when she was about your age. Always said she'd build her own car company one day." "What happened to her?" Maya asked gently. He took a breath, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "She passed away. A car accident years ago." Maya's grip on the wheel softened. "I'm sorry," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Thank you. It was a long time ago, but seeing you, working so hard, talking about engines with that same spark, it reminds me of her. It's painful, but in a good way." They fell silent again, the kind of silence that didn't need words. When they finally stopped by the lakeside, Maya parked the car and turned off the engine. The air was cool and the lake shimmered like glass. Raymond looked at her and said, "You know, Maya, when I first saw you, I thought you were just a kind kid helping a stranger. But now I see you're something more. You're a reminder that people can still care, still dream, no matter where they come from." Maya looked down, smiling shyly. "You give me too much credit, sir." "No," he said gently. "Not enough." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small keychain shaped like a Mustang emblem. "This was my daughter's," he said quietly. "I want you to have it. For luck." Maya stared at it, speechless. "I can't take this." "Yes, you can," he interrupted softly. "Because I think she would have wanted me to give it to someone like you." Tears filled her eyes, but she nodded, holding it tightly in her hand. "Thank you, Raymond. I'll take care of it." They sat for a while talking about engines, life, and dreams. When they finally drove back, the sound of the Mustang's engine was smooth. No more clicking. But more importantly, something invisible had changed too. Trust had been built, between a man who had lost his reason to hope and a girl who was just beginning to find hers. As they reached the garage, Maya smiled and said, "See? Told you it was just a small issue." Raymond laughed. "Maybe for you. For me, it was another lesson learned." "Lesson?" she asked, tilting her head. He smiled. "That sometimes the right people come into your life when you're not looking for them." The week after their lakeside drive, something in Raymond Carter's life began to shift. He noticed it in small things, the way he looked forward to Saturdays, the way the roar of his Mustang no longer felt like noise but like music again, and how the thought of that young girl, Maya Thompson, always brought a quiet smile to his face. At his company office, people noticed it too. His assistant, Clara, once joked, "You've been in a better mood lately, sir." "What changed?" Raymond only smiled and said, "A reminder." He didn't explain further. Some stories didn't need explaining. Meanwhile, at Nolan's garage, Maya's life was moving just as fast. Since meeting Raymond, she'd been working harder than ever. Her sketches were getting sharper, her ideas clearer. At night, after homework, she stayed up designing engine systems and dream cars in her small notebook, her father's old ring glinting faintly in the lamplight. One Thursday afternoon, as she was finishing work, a sleek black car stopped in front of the garage. Maya wiped her hands on a rag and walked out. And there he was again, Raymond Carter, smiling under the soft glow of the sunset. "Maya," he said cheerfully. "Busy as always?" "Always," she said with a laugh. "Engines don't fix themselves." He nodded toward Mr. Nolan, who stood nearby. "Mind if I steal your best mechanic for a few minutes?" Mr. Nolan chuckled. "Go ahead, but don't make her quit. I need her more than you do." Maya laughed and followed Raymond outside. His Mustang gleamed beside the curb, but she noticed something different. A small silver ribbon tied around the antenna. Raymond opened the car door and took out a slim black folder. "I wanted to talk to you about something important," he said. Maya blinked, curious. "About what?" He handed her the folder. My foundation, Carter Future Scholars. We've reviewed your application. Her eyes widened. Wait, you actually... He nodded with a smile. Yes, I sent your drawings, your school grades, even Mr. Nolan's reference. They were impressed. Very impressed. She hesitated, afraid to hope. And... Raymond's smile grew. And you got it. Full scholarship. Tuition, books, even a monthly stipend for living expenses. You're officially going to college, Maya. For a moment, she just stood there, frozen. The words didn't feel real. You're serious? As serious as an engine light, he said, laughing. Congratulations, engineer in training. Maya gasped, covering her mouth. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, Oh my God, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Raymond said softly. Just promise me one thing. Never stop doing what you love. She nodded, her hands trembling as she held the folder to her chest. I promise. There was silence for a few seconds. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in orange and gold. That's when Raymond noticed it again, the gold ring on her finger catching the light. He smiled gently. You still wear that ring? Maya looked down at it, her thumb brushing over its smooth surface. Always, she said quietly. It's my dad's. He used to say every car has a soul and every dream has a cost. This ring reminds me not to give up when things get hard. Raymond nodded slowly, his chest tightening.
He must have been a good man. He was, she said softly.
He taught me everything I know. And even though he's not here, I feel like he's still watching. Raymond looked away for a moment, his eyes distant. You know, he said, my daughter had a ring like that too. Different design, but the same meaning. She believed in holding on to what matters. Maya smiled. Maybe that's what connects us then. People who still believe in something real. He looked at her and saw not just a talented girl, but a reflection of something he'd lost, faith, hope, and purpose. After a pause, he reached into his pocket again. I have something for you, he said. Maya frowned slightly. Raymond, you've already done so much. He held up a hand, smiling. It's not a gift, it's a symbol. He pulled out a small silver key attached to a leather tag. This belongs to my old garage in the city, the one where I used to build cars before I became too busy to remember why I started. It's empty now, but I want you to use it whenever you need a place to work. Call it a second workshop. Her eyes widened again. You're giving me a garage? He chuckled. I'm lending it. Let's call it shared custody. Maya laughed through tears. I don't know what to say. Say you'll build something great there, he replied. Something that'll make your father proud, and maybe make a few of us old folks remember what passion looks like. She wiped her tears and nodded. I'll do that. I promise. They stood there for a moment in silence, the millionaire and the schoolgirl, connected by more than fate. It wasn't about money, charity, or gratitude anymore. It was about two hearts mending each other in ways neither of them expected. Finally, Maya whispered, You know, Raymond, I used to think I was fixing your car that day, but now I realize maybe you were fixing something in me too. He smiled, eyes glistening. Maybe we fixed each other, Maya. As the wind picked up, carrying the faint hum of the Mustang's engine, Maya clutched the key tightly, her ring shining beside it, two symbols of faith and new beginnings. That evening, she wrote in her notebook, Today a door opened, not just to a new place, but to a new life. And somehow it all started with a broken car and a stranger who believed in me. That night, after Raymond had driven away, Maya sat on the edge of her bed with the folder in her lap and the small silver key resting beside it. The room was quiet except for the ticking of the old clock her father once fixed. She kept staring at the ring on her finger, the one that had caught Raymond's attention earlier, and for the first time in a while she began to cry. They weren't sad tears. They were heavy, grateful, overflowing tears. Everything she had dreamed of, studying engineering, building cars, making her father proud, was finally becoming real. And yet the one person she wanted to tell most was gone. She whispered softly, Dad, I did it. I really did it. The ring glimmered faintly under the lamplight. It was old, scratched in places, but still beautiful. Her father's initials, TT, were carved inside, Thomas Thompson. She remembered the day he had given it to her, 2 weeks before the accident. He had been sitting in the garage, his hands covered in grease, his laughter echoing through the room. Maya had been trying to fix an old carburetor, frustrated because it wouldn't fit properly. Her father had watched her quietly, then reached into his pocket and slipped the ring onto her finger. "Someday," he had said, "this ring will remind you that you can fix anything, even the things that seem too broken to save." At the time, she didn't understand. But now she finally did. The ring wasn't just a memory. It was a promise and a symbol of resilience, of love, of never giving up no matter how hard life got. The next morning, she went to Nolan's garage early, before anyone else arrived. She unlocked the door, placed the silver key Raymond had given her on the counter, and looked around the familiar space. Everything smelled of oil, dust, and sunlight, the same scent that had always reminded her of her father. She whispered, "Thank you," to both the men who had shaped her path. One gone, one newly found. Later that day, Raymond came by again. He had said he'd drop off a few papers for the scholarship, but Maya could tell from his expression that he wasn't there just for that. He smiled as he entered. "Morning, engineer." "Morning," she replied with a grin. "You're early." "I wanted to check on the future of the automobile industry," he said teasingly. She laughed, shaking her head. "Well, the future needs coffee first." As they talked, Raymond's eyes drifted again to her ring. This time he asked gently, "Can I see it up close?" Maya hesitated for a moment, then slid it off her finger and handed it to him. The ring felt warm from her skin, small and delicate in his large hand. He turned it slowly, noticing the engraved initials inside. "Your father's, right?" She nodded. "Yes, Thomas Thompson, he was everything to me." Raymond's expression softened. "You know, when I first saw it, I thought it was an engagement ring." She laughed lightly. "No, not yet. It's just my promise ring. I'm to him and to myself." "What kind of promise?" he asked quietly. Maya looked at the ring in his hand and smiled faintly. "That I'll never stop trying. That no matter how hard life gets, I'll keep fixing things. Cars, dreams, people. That's what he taught me." Raymond's eyes grew misty. "Your father raised you well, Maya. He'd be proud of you." "Very proud," she smiled softly. "I like to think he sent you, you know. Like maybe I was supposed to meet you, none, so I wouldn't give up." He nodded slowly, swallowing hard. "Maybe he did. Maybe your dad and my daughter are somewhere, watching us shake up the world together." They both laughed quietly, but their laughter carried something deeper, an understanding that life's greatest connections often come from shared pain and unexpected kindness. After a while, Maya took the ring back and slid it onto her finger again, twisting it gently. "You know what's funny?" she said. "When people see me wearing this, they probably think it's just jewelry. But it's not. It's my strength." Raymond smiled, his voice soft. "And that's exactly what makes it beautiful." Before he left, he handed her a small box. "For when you start at college," he said. Maya frowned. "You didn't have to—" "I didn't," he interrupted. "But I wanted to." Inside the box was a simple silver bracelet engraved with the words, "Keep building." Her eyes welled up again. "It's perfect," she whispered. He smiled. "So is your future." As he walked out to his Mustang, Maya watched him go, her heart full. She looked down at her hand, the ring on one finger, the bracelet on her wrist, and realized something. These weren't just pieces of metal. They were chapters of her story, reminders that life, like a car, might break down sometimes, but with enough heart you can always rebuild. That night, she sat by her window, the cool wind brushing her face, and wrote in her journal, "The ring is my past, the bracelet is my present, and the road ahead is my future. I finally understand that meaning isn't found in things. It's found in people who remind you why you started." Days passed, and life began to settle into a quiet rhythm for both Maya and Raymond. She spent her afternoons at Nolan's garage, fixing engines and sketching designs for her first college project. He, on the other hand, found himself stopping by more often, sometimes with coffee, sometimes just to talk. What had started as a coincidence had now become something steady, almost like a friendship that neither had planned but both needed. On one cloudy Saturday, the sky threatened rain. Maya was in the garage, her hands covered in grease, working on an old blue sedan that had been sitting there for weeks. Raymond stood nearby, leaning against the Mustang, watching her with the same quiet admiration as always. "You know," he said, breaking the silence, "you make fixing a car look like painting." Maya smiled faintly, tightening a bolt. "Well, every car has a mood. You just have to learn how to listen, he chuckled softly. Your father must have been a good teacher. She paused for a moment and nodded. The best. He used to say machines can tell when your heart isn't in it. Raymond nodded slowly, but his eyes seemed distant, heavy with a thought he hadn't yet spoken. After a long pause, he said quietly, Maya, can I tell you something I've never told anyone in a long time? She looked up, surprised. Of course, Raymond. You can tell me anything. He took a deep breath, his voice trembling just a little. I told you my daughter loved cars. That was true. But I never told you her name. Maya waited silently, sensing the weight of what was coming. Her name was Elena, he said softly. She was 17, the same age you were when we met. She wanted to study automotive design. She even used to draw engine blueprints like yours. She used to say she'd build a car that could run like a song. His voice broke slightly and Maya felt her chest tighten. She wiped her hands and stepped closer, listening. One night, he continued, she was driving home from school in the rain. She was always careful, but sometimes life doesn't care about careful. His eyes grew glassy. A drunk driver hit her car. She didn't make it. The sound of the rain outside began to grow louder, like the world itself was listening. Maya stood frozen, her throat thick with emotion. She wanted to say something, anything, but no words came out. Raymond continued, his voice quiet but steady. After that, I stopped going near cars. I couldn't even look at the Mustang for years. It was our project, something we were restoring together. Every bolt I tightened reminded me of her laugh. Every time I turned the engine, I could almost hear her voice. So I locked it away. He paused, breathing deeply. Then one morning years later, the car wouldn't start. And that's when you appeared, and out of nowhere. A girl, same age as my daughter, with the same love for engines, the same spark in her eyes. When you fixed that Mustang, it felt like I was hearing Elena's heartbeat again. Maya's eyes filled with tears. She took a slow step forward, her voice barely above a whisper. Raymond, I didn't know, he smiled sadly. How could you? But you brought something back to me, Maya. You reminded me that love doesn't die, it just changes shape. Sometimes it returns as a stranger with kind eyes and oil-stained hands. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The rain fell harder, tapping against the roof in soft rhythm. Then quietly, Maya said, Maybe Elena sent me. Raymond looked at her, his eyes glistening. I've thought that too, he admitted. You came at the exact moment I needed someone to remind me what purpose feels like. Maya smiled through her tears. Maybe she wanted you to finish what you started. He nodded slowly. And maybe your father wanted you to have someone watching your back while you chase your dream. The air between them felt heavy but warm. Like a truth long buried had finally been set free. Then to lighten the mood, Maya chuckled softly. You know, if they're both watching from wherever they are, they're probably laughing at us right now. Raymond laughed, a real heartfelt laugh that echoed through the garage. You're probably right. My daughter would have liked you, Maya. And my dad would have liked you too, she replied. He always respected people who cared more than they admitted. For the rest of that afternoon, they didn't talk much. They worked side by side, Raymond handing her tools, Maya tightening bolts, both lost in thought but connected in silence. When the rain finally stopped, the sky opened to a calm gray evening. As Raymond prepared to leave, Maya wiped her hands and said softly, Raymond, thank you. Not just for helping me, but for trusting me with your story. He smiled. No, Maya, thank you, for giving me a reason to tell it again without breaking. She nodded, her eyes glowing with quiet emotion. Then I guess we both fixed something today. He looked at her warmly. Yes, something more important than a car. As the Mustang's engine roared to life and Raymond drove off into the wet road, Maya watched the taillights fade into the misty distance. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was standing in the shadow of her father's memory. She felt like she was walking beside it. And in that moment, she understood something powerful, that grief and love are never opposites. They are the same engine, just running on different fuel. Months passed and the seasons changed. The crisp air of winter slowly melted into the warm promise of spring. For Maya Thompson, life no longer felt like a race she was losing. It felt like a road finally opening up in front of her, long and full of possibility. The day she received her official college acceptance letter, she ran all the way to Nolan's garage, clutching the envelope like treasure. Her hands trembled as she tore it open. her eyes racing across the printed words. She had been accepted into the State Institute of Automotive Engineering. Full scholarship. First semester starting in September. Mr. Nolan. She shouted, her voice echoing through the garage. I got in. The old man looked up from under a car, his glasses slipping down his nose. Well, I'll be damned, he said with a grin. You did it, kid. She laughed, twirling in excitement, the gold ring on her finger catching the sunlight. Then she stopped, realizing there was someone else she wanted to tell even more. That evening, Raymond Carter sat in his office, the setting sun painting his walls gold. His desk was filled with blueprints, sketches, and photos, most of them from Maya. She'd been sending him updates every week, her excitement infectious. He'd found himself laughing again, dreaming again, building again. When his phone buzzed, he answered immediately. Guess what? Maya's voice came through full of joy. You got in, he said, already smiling. She gasped. How did you? He chuckled. I could hear it in your voice, kiddo. Maya laughed, breathless with happiness. I did it, Raymond. I really did it. And it's all because of you. No, he said firmly. It's because of you. I just gave you the key. You built the engine. She was quiet for a moment, her voice softening. Still, thank you for believing in me when no one else did. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes glistening. You reminded me why belief matters. A few weeks later, Raymond drove his Mustang to the garage one last time before Maya left for college. The air smelled of fresh rain and gasoline, the kind of scent that always felt like home. Maya was waiting outside, her backpack slung over one shoulder, a small suitcase beside her. She looked older somehow, not by age but by purpose. The silver bracelet still shone on her wrist, and the ring gleamed proudly on her hand. Raymond stepped out of the car, smiling. Ready for your next adventure? Ready as I'll ever be, she said, grinning. He opened the trunk and pulled out a small box. One last thing, he said. Raymond, don't argue, he said with mock sternness. Just open it. Inside was a miniature Mustang model, handcrafted from metal. The same car they'd worked on, painted deep blue with a tiny golden plate at the bottom that read, Keep driving forward. Maya stared at it, speechless. It's beautiful. It's yours, he said softly. For when the real road gets rough. A reminder that even the strongest engines stall sometimes, Gary, but that doesn't mean they're broken. She smiled, her eyes shimmering. You always know what to say, he chuckled. That's because you're easy to believe in. Maya hugged him tightly, and for a moment neither spoke. It wasn't just gratitude between them. It was something deeper. A bond built on second chances, on hope, on the way broken people sometimes help each other heal. When they finally pulled apart, Raymond said, You know, Maya, that day I met you on the street, I thought you were just helping me fix my car. Turns out you fixed me too. Maya laughed softly. Funny, I was thinking the same thing. They both smiled, two souls from different worlds who had somehow met at the exact right moment in time. As she walked toward the bus stop, Raymond watched her go, his heart full. The wind carried the sound of her laughter and the faint jingling of her bracelet. She turned once, waving at him. Take care of the Mustang for me. He waved back. Only if you promise to build one better someday. She grinned. Deal. Months later, in her new dorm room, Maya hung a photo of her father above her desk, next to a picture of the Mustang and the model Raymond had given her. Late at night, when the world was quiet, she'd touch the ring and whisper, I'm still building, Dad. Back in Brooksville, Raymond often took his Mustang out for long drives. The car ran smoother than ever, the engine steady and alive. He'd drive past the coffee shop, past the old streets, past the lake, remembering the girl who had walked into his life and turned his grief into gratitude. He didn't just see a mechanic when he thought of Maya. He saw a spark, proof that hope could be reborn, that kindness could rebuild even the rustiest parts of the heart. And so, the story of the black schoolgirl and the millionaire wasn't one of charity or luck. It was a story of healing, of faith, and of two broken souls who fixed each other. One bolt, one dream, one conversation at a time. The Mustang kept running, the ring kept shining, and the road ahead was endless. Years rolled by like miles on an open highway. Maya Thompson was no longer the girl in a school uniform with a greasy wrench in her hand. She was now Engineer Maya Thompson, a name whispered with admiration across her university campus and beyond. She had graduated at the top of her class, built a prototype of a hybrid engine Mustang that amazed professors, and won a national award for innovation. Yet even with cameras flashing and interviews piling up, she still wore her father's ring and the bracelet Raymond had given her. Those two pieces never left her hand, no matter how elegant the events or how polished her achievements became. One afternoon, she stood on a stage beneath bright lights, giving a speech to a crowd of young students who dreamed just like she once had. On the screen behind her was a picture of an old garage, a man in a business suit and a classic black Mustang gleaming under the sun. "When I was 17, she began, I helped a stranger fix his car. I thought I was just tightening bolts, but I was really tightening the connection between two hearts, one that had lost hope and one still learning what hope meant. That man taught me something priceless. The right person doesn't always arrive to change your life. Sometimes they arrive so you can help change theirs too." The crowd fell silent, captivated by her sincerity. When she finished, the audience rose in applause, and somewhere in the front row an older man with silver hair wiped a tear from his cheek. After the event, Maya found him waiting backstage, Raymond Carter, holding a bouquet of daisies and his familiar warm smile. "You didn't tell me you were going to make me cry in public," he said, laughing softly. She hugged him tightly. "I had to. You're part of my story," he looked at her proudly, "and you're the best chapter in mine." They sat together for a while reminiscing. Maya showed him photos of her new workshop, filled with students she was mentoring. "I named it Thompson and Carter Motors," she said shyly. "I hope you don't mind." "Mind?" He laughed. "I'm honored." As they talked, a familiar sound filled the air, the deep, comforting rumble of an engine. Raymond turned his head and saw something that made his breath catch. Rolling up the driveway was a newly restored blue Mustang, the same model they had once worked on together, but now transformed into a hybrid masterpiece. It gleamed like a dream reborn. Maya smiled. "I rebuilt it, Raymond. With the students. I call it Elena." For a long moment he said nothing. His eyes shimmered, his lips trembling between pride and gratitude. "You named it after my daughter?" She nodded softly. "She was part of your story. Now she's part of ours." Raymond walked around the car slowly, running his hand along the smooth metal. The design was modern, but it carried the soul of the original. Strong, timeless, full of heart. He looked at Maya. "You've done something extraordinary. You didn't just build a car, you built a legacy." She smiled, her eyes glowing. "And you helped me find the road to it." They drove together that evening, just as they had years before, the wind rushing through the windows, the engine humming like a heartbeat. The sun sank behind them, painting the road in gold and crimson. Raymond looked over at Maya, proud and peaceful. "You know, Maya, I used to think my story ended the day my daughter died, but now I realize it was just changing lanes." Maya smiled. "And sometimes the road that feels like an ending is just the start of a new journey." As they sped toward the horizon, two lives that once collided by chance now moved forward by choice, bound not by blood, but by belief, kindness, and the power of rebuilding what once felt lost. And somewhere, in the soft roar of the engine, it almost felt like two familiar spirits. The father and the daughter were smiling too. The ring still shone. The Mustang still ran. And the story kept going.